Hey everyone, Rho here. Today we continue our redemption of the Traitor Legion's discussion, and the time of the World Eaters has arrived. General spoiler warning to begin, as the events we are discussing today are from across the Warhammer 40k universe, so you have been warned. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. So we have reached the third installment of our What If discussion, ranking the redemption of the Traitor Legions from least to most likely. If this is the first time you're joining us, this is just a What If discussion. We all know it's never going to happen. The Emperor, while wanting to save his traitor sons, would undoubtedly have no intention of saving their legions. Now, we began my rankings with Abaddon's Black Legion, down in 9th place as the least likely in my mind, and they were followed extremely closely, if not tied, by the Word Bearers. And well, now I have the World Eaters, and I'm going to be honest here, 3 of the dedicated God Traitor Legions are all extremely close for me, namely the Emperor's Children, Death Guard and the World Eaters. As I said the other day, I've had a hard time ranking this bottom half. While no doubt surprisingly I have them comfortably above the Black Legion and Word Bearers, the order for them does keep shuffling about every time I look at it. As I sat down this morning, I actually had the World Eaters far higher on the rankings, as nothing about their fall to chaos was truly their choice. If we really think about it for a minute, Angron was never given the chance to even become the Primarch he was meant to be. He was hunted by Eldari the moment he landed upon Nuceria, for crimes of a fate not yet written. And so it could really be said the Eldari are the reason for all the tragedy Angron would go on to create. If they hadn't pursued the terrified child, maybe it wouldn't have led to him being enslaved after all. So thanks for that, Eldar. But regardless, enslaved as a still bewildered child he was. For all the lion's legendary upbringing alone within the forests of Caliban, at least he was free. Angron never knew that freedom. Then, as his Primarch body grew, his mind would become ravaged by the implementation of the Butcher's nails. The Primarch's mind forever lost to anger and rage. And then, if that was not all enough, the only form of a relationship, of kinship he had ever known, the bonds of brotherhood with his fellow slaves, was ripped away from him by a man claiming to be his father, the Emperor of Mankind. Whenever you read a Traitor Primarch story, you always tend to get lost within it. This one is for sure the most sad and tragic. Or at least okay, I do. Magnus did nothing wrong. Mortarion had no choice. Horus was corrupted in his moment of weakness. But when we really stand back and look at them all encompassing, it undoubtedly has to be Angron's. This guy never had a chance. The Horus Heresy Primarch series of novels gives us a great glimpse into the Primarch's backstories. And if you haven't read Angron's one, Slave of Nuceria, by author Ian St. Martin, I cannot recommend it enough. You will truly get to learn the tragedy of Angron's time upon Nuceria, and it will really help you look at this stereotyped Primarch all the more differently. After that, for the Legion years itself, Well, that certainly went no better. Angron slaughtered his legionaries himself, as much as he led them. And once the Butcher's Nails was implemented throughout the Legion, they forever became a lost cause. Even Angron's ascension to demonhood was a manipulation by Lorgar, an eternity of enslavement for a man who barely knew anything else. So in truth, nothing about the World Eaters was an embracement of chaos. At least to me, not in a logical sense. And so when contemplating possible redemptions, I really had this in mind when considering how it could play out for the World Eaters. And so seeing as they never truly chose chaos, a figurative redemption should be easier than, say, the Emperor's Children, who, an argument could be made, was certainly more embracing of it than the World Eaters. However, while a fairly straightforward view, which does have merit, I ultimately decided there's a few more factors at play here. Firstly, the scars of Angron's past. This is actually very similar to our discussion with Lorgar the other day, in that perhaps Angron's most painful and resentful memory was one not caused by chaos, not caused by the slavers of Nuceria, but by the Emperor of Mankind himself. In the moment of the Emperor's arrival to Nuceria, Angron was leading his fellow slaves in revolt, an open war against their monstrous captors, and it had all led to one final stand, one they were unlikely to win, but a stand they were making nonetheless, a stand they had to make. And it was in that moment the Emperor arrived, finding Angron amidst the battle, transporting him aboard his starship, leaving Angron's fellow slaves to die. And it's not even the action itself which is the worst thing. It's the Emperor's words after Angron is aboard. Angron pleads with him to help the slaves who are being slaughtered, and the Emperor just dismisses it. Although we only have Angron's viewpoint of this encounter, even I, as an ardent Emperor supporter, have to rank this as one of his worst decisions. I don't care how important the world of Nuceria may have been, the support of a Primarch was worth more. Despite the Butcher's Nails, the Emperor could have still salvaged some form of a relationship here. How easily the Emperor could have just teleported himself down there, or a squad of custodies, forming a measure of respect. For all of Angron's flaws, for all the struggle against the Nails, this one action could have at least established a relationship in some measure. And yet the Emperor, in disregarding Angron's pleas so easily, he not only ensured a bond could never be established, he ensured a hatred was birthed in its place. To Angron, the Emperor was no different from the enslavers who had tormented him his entire life. Even if the Emperor used his power to free Angron from his demonic corruption, those scars of their reunion, that hatred, would remain. In one simple action, the Emperor ensured Angron would never willingly follow him. It's definitely worth another more in-depth discussion another day, as I really think the Emperor naively thought it was all to do with the Butcher's Nails, when in reality, a mere olive branch of humanity could have been all that was needed. However, that brings us on to the second factor, the butcher's nails. And this one is as equally important for the Legion as a whole. It really shows us that the Emperor would have had two barriers to overcome in any attempt to redeem the World Eaters. Firstly, the corruption, and secondly, the butcher's nails. While in this what-if scenario his power could be used for the first, I doubt it could be used for the second. We have seen within the Horus Heresy series that the Emperor was researching a way to remove the butcher's nails, from his son Angron at least, meaning that an operation of some form would obviously be needed, and that just opens another whole can of worms. Whereas Angron's body may survive such a feat, it is highly unlikely a legionary could. And even if that were the case, you'd be looking at trying to attempt it wide scale, across the entire Legion. They may not have the Legion numbers of old, but there's still a lot of them. And that's not something easily done, as we've seen with the Primaris rollout across the Imperium. It would take a long time. So you'd have a Legion still victim to the butcher's nails. Is there any scenario where they could stay loyal and not fall victim to the call of Khorne, their minds still so enraptured by rage? That's not a bet that I would like to take, and that's why I can't put them above the likes of their fellow god-devoted legions, the Death Guard or the Emperor's Children, as at least for them they don't have the added problem of the butcher's nails. Originally, I looked at the World Eaters as a fairly straightforward situation. Cure the corruption, remove the butcher's nails. But then when you really consider all the factors, it becomes a lot murkier. Even if the Emperor managed to rid Angron of his demonic corruption, the scars of their past remain. Even if he removed the butcher's nails, the scars of their past remain. If it wasn't for that one action, that one moment of lack of compassion, or maybe a simple lack of understanding, maybe their relationship could have still been salvaged. Maybe even despite an ultimate fall to chaos, Angron as he was, if not meant to be, could have still been saved. But in an ironic twist of fate, maybe the Emperor himself ensured that Angron could never truly be redeemed. I've got the World Eaters above the Black Legion because they don't have quite the same dedicated hatred of the Imperium. They are just victims to their rage, endlessly seeking skulls for the Skull Throne. They're equally as likely to fight themselves as anybody else. I've got them above the Word Bearers, as they didn't willingly walk towards the ruinous powers, and so somewhere within, as buried and small as it may be, somewhere they know they are slaves. However, I just can't put them any higher, for the amount of boundaries that would have to be crossed. And again, even if they were broached, some damage was done by the Emperor himself. Which is a shame, for I absolutely love the thought of a loyal Angron, the Primarch he was always meant to be. But as always guys, what do you think? Where do you have the World Eaters in your ranking? Do the Emperor's own actions prevent the World Eaters from being any higher on the list? And maybe should they actually be nearer the bottom still? Or do you feel if Angron was just freed from corruption, freed from the nails, his relationship with his father could still be salvaged? Or despite everything, is Angron simply too scarred to ever be able to be free? As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below, I love to read them. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. And if you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. If you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.